for this limited time offer.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Julia Janae. Thank you for joining us this afternoon and following along with us as we track several major trials here at Court TV. We're in Ohio, where the state has rested their case in chief in the medical assistant murder trial. The defendant there is Quentin Nixon. He's representing himself at this trial, and he's doing it in front of a judge only. So it's a bench trial, not a jury trial. He's accused of fatally shooting 34-year-old Tony Westover, and he's claiming self-defense. He said that he will take the stand when testimony resumes in his case next week. We're also in South Carolina, where the state's case is winding down in the jealous husband murder trial. Bud Ackerman is accused of fatally striking his estranged wife's new boyfriend with his pickup truck. He says it was an accident. And in Florida, our newest live trial kicked off today with opening statements in the home renovation murder trial. Corey Benderman is accused of killing his client after she threatened to sue him for not completing a bathroom project. And in Tennessee, brother and sister Michael and Karen Murray, they're being sentenced today for the death of their mom, Sheila. Prosecutors successfully argued earlier this year that the siblings neglected their ailing mom, which ultimately resulted in her death in August of 2019. So we'll keep you updated on all of these trials throughout the day. But first, we want to begin in South Carolina for the jealous husband murder trial. Before we get you into court, let's get you caught up on the case. Here's Court TV anchor Ashley Wilcott with more on the case against Bud Ackerman.
May 6, 2023, William Bud Ackerman Jr. is meeting his estranged wife's boyfriend, Kenneth Davis McClendon. In the early morning hours on May 7th at the intersection of Sawgrass Place and Avid Road, Ackerman would strike McClendon with his truck, killing him. Local news station WIFF reported his arrest.
New tonight at 6, a man is facing murder charges after deputies say he intentionally hit another man with his car. The man was taken to a hospital, and that is where he later died.
William Ackerman married Meredith Haney on February 25th of 2012, making their home in Greenwood, South Carolina. The two would have 3 kids, but the marriage would fall apart in May of 2022. About 6 months later, Meredith started seeing Davis McClendon. According to prosecutors, Ackerman found out about the relationship and asked his estranged wife to meet McClendon. The two met at a cul-de-sac in the Greenwood subdivision, Hunters Creek, and around 1:11 a.m. on May 7th of 2023, McClendon was hit by Ackerman's 7,000-pound truck at 25 miles per hour. An hour and a half after the incident, police arrived at Ackerman's parents' house and was arrested for murder. Ackerman and Haney would be divorced 4 weeks later. The prosecution claims Ackerman intentionally killed McClendon because he didn't want him to be with his ex-wife. Ackerman has pleaded not guilty to the murder charge.
And let's go into the courtroom now. The medical examiner is testifying to what they saw on the autopsy of the victim in this case, Davis McClendon.
And you've just described the body comes and Mr. McClendon came to you. Is this what you're talking about, Doctor?
Yes, that's a picture of one corner of the body transport bag, and it includes a label tag and a seal tag. Those are the yellow tags, and then towards the bottom is a ruler with the name of the decedent as identified to me, and some additional information on that label.
And he's identified here as it shows 3115143. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And did you actually put that in your report before you started examining that that's how he arrived?
Yes.
Under that number?
Yes.
You opened the bag, obviously?
Yes.
Okay. And was there a shoe contained in the bag with him?
There was, yes.
That's all we have. And were there also some pins that Mr. McClendon had?
Yes.
And is that depicted in what's this number? 37 for the record. The previous one. And 26, I apologize. So going back to the pants, number 37, did you observe those when you opened the bag?
Yes.
Mr. McClendon, okay.
Yes, I did. Those had been previously cut and removed, and the image that we see here, just kind of for orientation, you can see towards the left of the image, you can see the belt, that's the waistline. This is actually predominantly the back part of the pants, but because they've been cut, We can see the sides and the front of the pants that have been laid open. But again, just for orientation, we're looking more towards what would be the right buttock area and right hip area currently. I'll just briefly draw your attention to the green-brown grass and dirt stain there for orientation purposes for the next image.
And it's where Ms. Colonel's put the arrow on that. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Okay, what was that again? I'm sorry.
So that's just a grass and dirt stain there. And again, that's mainly for orientation purposes to help with understanding the next image.
Okay, next image. Is this the next image you're talking about?
It is, and we can see up towards the top left of this image, we can see a little bit of that dirt and grass stain. In the center of the image, this is the lower part of the right leg area, right pants leg area. And we can see some black patterned marking on the leg. That would correspond approximately to the inside part of the right leg.
And based on your experience in training this, what would that be consistent with?
It's consistent with a tire type of mark. Those marks can have lots of different appearances, but that could be a tire mark.
So, Doctor, we have and that's photo 39 for the record.
What number?
39.
39.
Now, Doctor, let's, we zip the bag, we get Mr. McClendon out. Do you measure and weigh him?
Yes.
Okay. And what were your findings when you did that?
He was measured at 72.5 inches in length or height and weighed 189 pounds at that time.
And Doctor, I want to do this what's easiest, well, quite frankly, for me, but also for you. You testified earlier you do an external exam, correct?
Yes.
And do you document when you're looking at Mr. McClendon everything on the outside? Do you take pictures?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of this jury, on your external exam, is there anything you want to reference before we get specifically to the external evidence of injury?
As part of the external examination, or even before the external examination, we take x-rays. That's one part of the process. And then, again, begin documenting things as I see them.
Okay. And your x-rays in this case, I think we're moving on to the next picture. .625 for the record. What is this an x-ray of?
This is an x-ray of his head, which includes the skull and basically upper part of the neck, or majority of the neck.
And in your report, and I think you discussed it with everybody, are there some subtle fractures?
There are, and I can try to show those, but it would mean getting a little closer.
Well, I think with the permission,
Sure.
Either
step down, just be sure to speak up loud, and if you have to go to the screen, no problem.
Thank you.
Just be sure to speak up a little louder.
Yes, sir. I think it may be easiest just to go straight to the screen.
if you just keep your voice up, Doctor.
So again, it is quite subtle, but we can see a fracture through part of his jaw here. There's an area of where it's darker. So that line represents a fracture. And then here, as I'm indicating, again, shows an area of darkening right there, which would correspond to the left side of his skull, which shows a fracture as well.
And what can cause that type of injury?
So any kind of significant impact, blunt impact, can cause that.
And looking at his mouth area here, and we're going to get to it in a minute, but was there any damage to Davis McClendon's mouth and/or this area?
The soft tissue, yes, but it's not something that we can see on the x-ray.
Okay. And was his mouth bleeding when you saw it? Was there blood in his mouth area?
There was blood present, yes.
Okay. All right, have a seat back. Thank you. Doctor, how many on your external evidence of injury, external evidence of injury, how many did you find external evidence of injury on Davis McClendon?
So in terms of how I documented it, I basically create a list, and now some of those listed items are actually a series of more than one injury, but on the list in my report, I have 22 separate items under external evidence of injury.
And Doctor, did you also prepare what I call body diagrams?
Yes.
And I want to show you what's marked states 55 and states 56. And did these, you recognize these, and do they relate to what you're talking about right now?
Yes.
Would these aid you in your testimony?
Yes.
55 and 56 without objection, Your Honor.
Without objection, Mr. McClure. Okay, 55, 56, and evidence.
Can we start with your external injury?
Sure.
And I would it help to put this on the elmo now, or you want to go through your?
Personally, I think it's useful to have the visual representation for people.
This is states 55.
And you can go back to the screen if you feel like you need to.
Thank you.
Doctor, you're in control. So starting with your external evidence of injury, could you just start with number 1 and go?
It would probably be better to go to the other diagram that focuses on the head.
Okay. I apologize. States 56.
So I'm going to go in order of the autopsy report, and then I'll try to reference those as best I can on the diagram as we go along. We'll basically start with a large laceration, up to 2-inch laceration, with some embedded leafy debris on the back of his head. So that's the right upper corner of the diagram that you're looking at on the screen, right in the middle of the back of his head. The lower part of that skin was undermined or flapped. And basically what that means is that when that injury was incurred, that the head struck something and slid or moved against that in order for that lower part of the skin to be partially pulled away. So that's an impact and sliding motion.
And was there blood? I mean, did you see blood when you examined the external part of his head when
Yes.
you saw that?
Yes.
Where the injury you're talking about? Okay.
Yes. And then around that and associated that with that was a little bit of abrasion. A little above and to the left, as you look at that same part of the diagram, was another smaller abrasion on the back of his head. I'll shift now to the front part of his face, which is the upper left of that diagram, where there is a little bit of faint periorbital hemorrhage, which is around the eye. So that's...
Let me stop you. What does that mean?
Periorbital.
Hitting the pause button on this testimony from the medical examiner. We'll get to this break and back in for more in the trial against Bud Ackerman after this.
When they couldn't sufficiently scare him, they killed him.
A young jogger chased and gunned down in South Georgia.
Ahmaud Arbery was hunted down.
Once that video got released to the public, everything changed.
They made their decision to attack Ahmaud Arbery in their driveways.
Should we have been chasing him? I don't know.
Victim to Verdict with Ted Rollins. All news Sunday night, 8/7 Central.
Only on Court TV.
How do I keep my protection against COVID-19 up to date with a COVID shot this season?
You can get your COVID-19 shot when getting your flu shot if you're due for both, as recommended by the CDC. Ask your healthcare provider and book at vaxassist.com.
Pretty Litter was the one that changed my world when it comes to cats.
My house never smells like cat litter. I don't have to worry about, if he's sick or not, because I could tell by the color of the health monitor.
Because Pretty Litter changed colors, I was able to get my cat Larry to the vet and get him the help that he needed.
My favorite part about having it delivered, it's convenient, it's there when I need it.
It's different than any litter I've ever seen or used, which is why I love it.
So give it a try. Visit prettylitter.com today.
Hi, my name is Damian Clark. And if you have both Medicare and Medicaid, I have some really encouraging news that you'll definitely want to hear. Depending on the plans available in your area, you may be eligible to get extra benefits with the Humana Medicare Advantage Dual Eligible Special Needs Plan. Most plans include the Humana Healthy Options Allowance, a monthly allowance to help pay for eligible groceries, utilities, rent, and over-the-counter items like vitamins, pain relievers, first aid supplies, and more. The Healthy Options Allowance is loaded onto a prepaid card each month, and whatever you don't spend carries over from each month. You can pay nothing for covered prescriptions all year long, even name brand drugs. All plans have $0 copays for covered preventive dental services, which include 2 free cleanings a year, as well as fillings. They may also have vision coverage, including vision exams, and a yearly allowance towards eyewear, such as lenses or contacts. Even hearing coverage, which includes routine hearing exams and coverage towards hearing aids. You'll even have a $0 copay for routine vaccines and telehealth visits. Plus, your doctor, hospital, and pharmacy may already be part of our large Humana networks. So call the number on your screen now to speak with a licensed Humana sales agent. Wouldn't you love benefits like a monthly allowance? To help pay for eligible groceries, utilities, rent, and over-the-counter items. So if you have Medicare and Medicaid, call the number on your screen now and speak with a licensed Humana sales agent. If you're eligible, they can even help enroll you over the phone in a Humana Medicare Advantage Dual Eligible Special Needs Plan. And remember, annual enrollment ends on December 7th. So call now. Humana, a more human way to healthcare.
I'm interested in trying these new weight loss shots, but I need it to be more affordable because my insurance doesn't cover it. I'm not sure which online provider to trust, and I want to ask a doctor a lot of questions.
You don't have to whisper. At Henry Meds, our knowledgeable providers demystify compounded semaglutide, the same active ingredient in brand name weight management meds. If you're eligible for treatment, your medication will be shipped to your door for just $2.97 a month. Join thousands of others who trust Henry Meds for weight management medication.
My family tree is big, with branches stretching all across the country, and we love to talk. But with wireless service providers, talk is not cheap. With the TextNow app, the whole family gets free nationwide calls and texts. Free, like literally $0 a month. Because connecting with your kids and parents and grandparents and siblings should be free, right? When I need data, I can add a plan that works for me. TextNow is my new way to phone. Download now.
All right, time to do some selling. That's going towards rent. Oh yeah, that's going towards girls' night. And that's going towards a new bag.
Your closet is worth more than you realize. Download the Poshmark app and start cashing in today.
Was it an accident or an intentional collision? We are watching the jealous husband murder trial happening in South Carolina for defendant William Bud Ackerman. He's accused of fatally striking Kenneth McClendon with his truck in the early morning hours of May 7th of 2023. And this was all over anger prosecutors say he had towards McClendon, who had just recently started dating the defendant's estranged wife, Meredith. Let's get you back into court now. The medical examiner is testifying to what the autopsy says about the victim's injuries.
There's some bleeding that's visible there. In this particular case, that is probably a result of blood settling from a skull fracture that's just above the eyes. But we'll talk about the internal fractures a little bit later.
Okay.
Then on the tip of his nose was a approximately 1-inch faint red bruise or contusion. Then we're going to go to the bottom right of the diagram. So extending from his left eye over basically above his left ear is an area of faint red to slightly blue bruising or contusion. It's about a 5 by 2 inch area. On the left cheek on the same diagram is a faint, approximately 3/4 by 1/2 inch, vaguely patterned red bruise, but it's quite faint. It's just a little bit squared off, so there's a little bit of a pattern to it. And then just behind the left ear is an area of contusion or hemorrhage up to about 3 inches. The injury near his eye and above his ear, as well as the injury on his left cheek, are a result of blunt impacts, whereas the hemorrhage behind the ear and below the ear there is most likely a result of, again, settling of blood related to a skull fracture that basically runs in between the ears, and we'll get to the skull fractures in more detail later.
And doctor, you're looking at this with your own eyes, taking pictures, and then you go document it and use a body diagram to help you later, like you're doing now?
Correct.
Okay.
Next, we'll go to the front part of the face again, which is the upper left part of the diagram. What we're going to be looking at is lips. So on the outer aspect of his upper lip was a 1-inch laceration into the soft tissue of the lip. And then on the inside of the upper lip, in the same location, was a corresponding approximately 1-inch laceration. It didn't quite go all the way through, but there's a laceration on both sides there. And then
Did that bleed?
Yes, there was blood around that, yes.
Okay.
On the outer aspect of the lower lip is about a 3/4 inch laceration that went all the way through. It perforated all the way through the lip.
Perforated all the way through the lip?
All the way through the lip.
And I don't want you to touch my lip, but that means it just went all the way through?
All the way through, yes.
Okay.
So you could pinch all the way through. Then below that, on the inside of the mouth, basically the inside of the lip had partially torn away from the chin bone, the mandible. So there was, again, a larger laceration. It's what we call an avulsion, where it partially pulls away from the bone itself.
So that means was the skin separated from the bone?
Basically, yes. The soft tissue, the mucosa on the inside of the mouth, kind of below the gum line, but where it attaches there, it had pulled away from the front part of the chin. There was also a small chip or fracture of one of the upper incisors, the upper teeth. On the front part of the chin itself, there was up to about 1.5 inch faint red bruise. And then if we go to the bottom middle of the diagram, we can see below the chin, sort of under the chin, is an additional about 1.25 inch red bruise. And I think that covers this particular diagram. We'd move to the next diagram.
So we will move to stage 55.
So we'll start pretty much from top down. So near the base of the neck, where the clavicles are, kind of as I'm indicating on myself here on either side, there was...
I don't know if the jury saw that. Your clavicles are where touching you?
Approximately here.
Okay.
There's one on each side.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So there's that little bone right there. There was bruising over each of those locations, up to about 1.5 inch on one side and 1 inch on the other side.
And based on your training and looking at Mr. McClendon, what could have caused that injury?
So when we start talking about how things are caused, it's usually best, instead of looking at individual injuries, to look at the constellation of injuries. So this constellation of injuries, yes, they're blunt. It's blunt trauma, but it's also consistent with the rest of the investigative information that indicates a vehicle being involved. And so we have several injuries to the face and head, to clavicles, and also to the right shoulder, which we'll talk about, that are consistent with a frontal impact, at least to those particular areas. But individually, each of those would be considered a blunt impact.
I won't interrupt you much again, sorry.
Not a problem. Then over the middle of the chest are some small bruises. up to about 1 inch. That's the middle part there. On the lower abdomen are up to about 1/2 inch abrasion with some bruising and an additional very small red abrasion. Then towards the right side of the waistline area, about the top part of the right hip, is a very dark, dry abrasion up to about 1.5 inches. Now we're going to go to the back part of the torso, so we just shift over. And we can see on the back, basically from the shoulders all the way down to the upper buttock region, is a very large area of patchy, extensive abrasion. And it is in a pattern that is consistent with what people, what can also be described as road rash. Basically, how this occurs is the entire back part of the body is laying on a flat, rough surface and slides along it, or they slide along each other. So this is a pretty typical finding that we characterize commonly as road rash. Then on the right buttock, there were a couple of excuse me, or a 1.5 inch patchy bruise there. And now we'll move to the right shoulder. So we're kind of going back over to the other diagram. So on his right shoulder is a 4 by 1.5 inch area of patchy bruising, again from blunt impact. On the front part of the right wrist, so down near the right hand, is an additional bruise across the front of the wrist. And then on the right hand and fingers are several superficial abrasions up to about 1/4 inch. That can occur from.
All right, Dr. Shaw, going through all of these injuries. We're hitting the pause button on the testimony to slip in a break, but first let's bring in trial attorney Kelly Hyman, who is here in studio with us. Kelly, this doctor is going through a lot. We know that Davis McClendon was killed by this car. That's not disputed by these two sides, but what is standing out to you that's actually going to help a jury decide, is this intentional or accidental?
Where he was harmed, because that's going to be key in this case, because there's two sides of the story. One, he got out of the car and the defendant rammed right into him, and the other side is the defendant's position of basically that it was an accident, that it was a mistake, that he was already out of the car. And so that is going to be key. Where are the injuries and how it relates to this case? Whether he was right out front of his car, he would have different injuries than potentially he would if it was an accident. So this is something the jury's definitely going to take into consideration in this case.
Yeah, interesting. We're hearing how much of that injury was to his face and to the top of his body, that Ford 250 that the defendant was driving. Not sure if that can be indicated by this forensic pathologist as far as if it was head on or to the side.
That could potentially. So when you think about it, was the car up so high? Like, did it ram right into him and that's where he got the injuries in the face, or something happened and he turned and that's why he got those types of injuries? But it's definitely important to know about the injuries and where they were and see if that was actually the accident or was it intentional.
Yeah, let's get to that break and get in for more testimony from this medical examiner after this break. Stay with us. You're watching Court TV.
Hi, I'm John.
Hey, I'm Janine.
I'm Steve, and I've been a Consumer Cellular customer for 8 years.
3 years.
11 years.
When they asked me if I want to be in a testimonial commercial,
I said sure.
Said sure.
I said sure.
But I got a tournament to get ready for.
Not if the fish are biting.
But it's a beautiful day. We started looking for another provider primarily because we felt like we were paying way too much.
I chose to switch because of the savings. It was amazing. Way cheaper than where I was.
I could hardly believe that my bill was so small. I'm paying less than $30 a month. It's a great service for a great price.
Unlimited talk and text with flexible data plans starting at $20. Plus, for a limited time, new customers save $50 when you sign up today.
The place that I live in is heavily forested. There's a lot of trees. What got me to be a customer, really, to tell you the truth, was the reception and the coverage of Consumer Cellular.
I travel a lot. I need coverage, no matter where I am. And so whether I'm in Augusta, Georgia, or Pebble Beach, California, I know that I'm going to be covered with Consumer Cellular.
I love to go far away places, remote places. I haven't had trouble with coverage, no direct calls.
Consumer Cellular offers fast, reliable nationwide coverage. Plus, for a limited time, new customers save $50 when you sign up today.
When we switched over from Verizon to Consumer Cellular, it was a really painless process.
Just kept the same phone. I kept the same number.
Anytime I call customer service, it's U.S.-based.
It's nice to know when I have an issue that I can have a real conversation.
Customer service has been great. I just get a bill at the end of the month. It's on auto pay, and it's super easy.
And as AARP members, we also get a nice discount.
That's right. AARP members receive a 5% discount. Make the switch now to the most awarded brand by J.D. Power. New customers save $50 when you sign up today.
Call 800-664-3547.
Or visit consumercellular.com to switch today.
Hey, buddy, why don't you get this number a call?
Hey, Jane, what's up?
Well, I'm getting a new car.
Yeah, contemplating the same.
You know, Carvana is super convenient.
Appreciate the tip. Definitely a no-brainer.
I didn't think you'd actually do it.
Well, with same-day delivery, it's no big deal.
New car, new you.
However you buy your car with Carvana.
It's party time. I'm talking about Jackpot Party, the leading free-to-play mobile slots game that always gives you more. Download Jackpot Party for free and get a 45 million coin bonus. Jackpot Party, a party in every spin.
I'm certain it's level 5.
Are you for imprint certain?
I'm certain it's level 5.
Certainty matters, like the certainty of 4imprint, your home for high-quality promotional gear, including exclusive items and brands they love. Printed perfectly and guaranteed to arrive on time. To wow your clients, nail your next event, or inspire your team, check out 4imprint.com.
4imprint, for certain.
Meet Just Fab, the shoe lover's best kept secret. Best styles, best prices. Up to 25% off retail. Go to justfab.com to get your first pair for $10 when you become a VIP.
I wish we could watch the college football games we actually care about. You can. On ESPN with Sling, they have the college football that you love. You can even choose and customize your channel lineup with Sling. And you can watch it on your phone. That sounds so easy. Now, how do we get out of here? Follow me. I love this. Yeah, that place was way too crowded.
Prepay and save with Season Pass and get the college football you care about. Sling lets you do that.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. Thank you for being with us. We are bringing you the case of the state of South Carolina versus William Bud Ackerman this afternoon. Now, prosecutors in that case say that Ackerman was driving his Ford 250 and he ran into his wife's new boyfriend, his soon-to-be ex-wife's new boyfriend. This happened last year. The defense claims that this was all an accident, and it was fueled by the victim, Davis McClendon's desire to fight the defendant. They were meeting up to discuss why he was dating the defendant's soon-to-be ex-wife. We are hearing from the medical examiner who performed the victim's autopsy in this case. Let's pick it up right where we left off.
Basically striking rough ground and partially being dragged across rough ground. On the left hand are 3 very tiny punctate. When I say punctate, I just mean that it's very tiny, like the tip of a pen or pencil, abrasions. Again, likely from similar kinds of impact or slight scraping against rough material. There was palpable fracture of the right femur. So the femur is the large bone between the hip and the knee. So his right thigh bone had been broken. That was located approximately 26 inches above the heel. The area of fracture was approximately 26 inches above his heel. On the outside of the lower right thigh and extending below the right knee to the outside of the right leg, and so that's on the left side of this diagram, is a large area of faint red bruising and some patchy abrasion. And then on the inside of the right leg, so if we move a little bit over on the diagram to see the other part of just like that. So on the part of the diagram on the right is his back, so the right side is the right leg, whereas on the left side of the diagram, the left side is the right leg because he's facing us. So corresponding on the inside of the lower right thigh to beyond the knee to the right leg area below the knee is an additional area, fairly large area of dry abrasion and some bruising. Those two areas together could have occurred as part of the same process, basically with something pressing on the inside of the leg and creating an injury there, which then compressed the outside of the leg against an additional surface, which produced injury on the outside. So you have approximately corresponding injury on the inside and the outside. The inside injury would approximately correspond to the black mark that we saw on the clothing if the clothing was being worn normally.
And would that be consistent with the tire on a vehicle?
Yes. And then looking at the left thigh, so we have to go up just a little bit on the diagram. There we go. Towards the top left part of the diagram, we see two parallel marks on his left thigh. That was about 28 inches above the heel, and that's an area of bruising with a focal area that has a little bit of a horizontal pattern that we see on that part of the diagram. And that's, again, about 28 and a half inches above his heel. Correct. And then elsewhere on his right leg was a 3.5-inch abrasion. On the inside of his left ankle was a faint bruise, and on the back of his left ankle is a very small abrasion.
The injury here, is that consistent with anything in this case based on your examination?
It's about context, but in this context, especially given that the right femur is fractured close to the same level, the right femur is fractured approximately 26 inches above the heel, and this faintly patterned injury on the left is about 28 and a half inches, so 2.5 inches difference, which is, you can shift your hips and basically create that much difference. It's again consistent with a very significant impact that broke one side and just caused some bruising on the other side. It's certainly not an unusual injury pattern or injury constellation related to a vehicle impact. And I think that covers the external evidence of injury as I have it.
And I want to stop you, and if we've shown it, I apologize to everybody. You just talked about the femur injury. This is 228. Is that the injury you talked about, the femur?
Yes, so that's a pretty obvious fracture of the right femur. That's an X-ray of a pretty obvious fracture of the right femur.
And what I went up and pointed to a minute ago was what you were talking about corresponding with that on the other leg?
Yes.
The injury?
Yes, so the right side had the fracture, the left side had the bruising that was visible on the skin surface. Okay, you can go back.
I checked off 22 on your report, external evidence of injury. Do you disagree with that? Your external injury, have you gone through?
I believe I have. I believe I mentioned that as well.
Yes, sir. That's what I was.
Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Kyle Shaw. After you examined Davis McClendon's exterior, what do you do next? Generally, what did you do next with his body?
So then once we've gathered everything that we needed to from the external and taken our photographs and all those kinds of things and move on to the internal part of the examination.
Okay.
And then document from there.
Okay. Thank you. And I'm looking at your report, which the defense has, page 4 of 7. Can you start with the internal evidence of injury that you, Dr. Kyle Shaw, found inside Davis McClendon?
Sure. And again, we'd go mostly from the top down. So,
I don't mean, but are you opening his body or looking inside?
Yes.
I don't mean to say, okay. All right.
Yes. So there's a large incision that is made basically from the shoulders to the middle of the chest. And then that incision goes down to basically the pelvis. And we open the body up and look at the internal organs. For the head, there's an incision that is made across the top of the head, and the scalp is reflected front and back, so we can see the outside part of the skull as well as the underside of the scalp. And then part of the top of the skull is removed in order to be able to examine the brain and the inside part of the skull, what we call the base of the skull. So yes, all of those organs and tissues are normally examined.
And you really, that's the only way to do it, isn't it?
It is.
Okay. And you actually literally open him up and look at his brain and start going down?
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's start with number 1.
So again, going in order of the autopsy report, his scalp was reflected and showed about a 3-inch hemorrhage beneath the scalp on the left side of his head, approximately underlying the area of bruising that was beside his eye and above his ear. There was also about a 4-inch area of hemorrhage on the back of his head associated with the large laceration right on the back of his head. There was a small amount of what we call subdural blood smearing. So just for explanatory purposes, inside the skull, we have different areas that we describe bleeding. So subdural bleeding is blood that is loose on the outer surface of the brain. So it's between the skull and the brain. It can be fluid blood that kind of moves around on the surface of the brain.
And what causes that?
In this case, that's secondary to blunt trauma. There can be other causes, but in this case, it's blunt trauma. There was additional what we call subarachnoid hemorrhage, and the difference between subdural and subarachnoid hemorrhage is that the subarachnoid hemorrhage is stuck to the surface of the brain. There's basically a fine membrane that sits on the surface of the brain, and that bleeding is just below that membrane, but we can see it.
And again, that could be caused by?
Blunt trauma.
Okay.
So there was fairly patchy, extensive, what we call, again, subarachnoid hemorrhage on the surfaces of the brain in several locations on the brain. That's related to, some of it's related to fractures of the brain where the bone itself impacts the brain.
This is just heartbreaking to hear about how Davis McClendon died that day, being hit by this Ford 250 driven by the defendant. But the real question for this jury, was this malicious, was this intentional, or was this an accident there in the street? We're going to get to a break, and we'll get you back in for more testimony in the case against Bud Ackerman.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, new developments in the murder of Anna Walsh. We're taking a closer look at how Trooper Proctor from the Karen Reed case could play a role in the case against Brian Walsh.
Closing Arguments tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
Sarah Boone is charged with second-degree murder after her boyfriend suffocated inside of a suitcase.
Sarah, I can't breathe, babe. I thought he was okay.
The Suitcase Murder Trial. Live coverage starting Monday morning, 8/7 Central on Court TV.
Hi, glad everyone's here. Let's get started.
When they want to squeeze up,
Let me share my screen. Okay, sorry about that. I'm excited to share
they want a squeeze up.
Deliciously delectable delectables.
Squeeze up. We really need to get that life insurance.
I know, it's just a lot.
Did someone say life insurance?
Introducing Evie for Ethos.
Let's make this easy. In just 10 minutes, Ethos can help you protect your family's future for as little as $10 a month.
But the medical exams are invasive, right?
You won't feel a thing because there aren't any.
Go to ethoslife.com, answer a few health questions, and you can get same-day coverage up to $2 million.
Ethos. Life insurance so easy it feels like magic. Get a quote in seconds at ethoslife.com.
At Bombas, we make absurdly comfortable socks, slippers you'll float in, and underwear and tees that feel like clouds. No, bunnies. Visit bombas.com and get 20% off your first order.
I'm Daniel, the founder of Pretty Litter, the color-changing, health-monitoring cat litter. Did you know that cats tend to hide symptoms of sickness and pain? I learned this the hard way after losing my cat, which drove me to create this. By working with scientists and veterinarians, we were able to develop a new litter with color-changing technology to help you keep tabs on your cat's health. With advanced odor control, low dust, and easy maintenance, it's no wonder we're called the world's smartest litter. So give it a try. Visit prettylitter.com today.
You'll find them in cities, towns, and suburbs all across America. Millions of Americans who have Medicare and Medicaid but may be missing benefits they could really use. Extra benefits they may be eligible to receive at no extra cost. And if you have Medicare and Medicaid, you may be able to get extra benefits too through a Humana Medicare Advantage dual eligible special needs plan. Call now to see if you qualify. With the Humana Medicare Advantage dual eligible special needs plan, you could have doctor, hospital, and prescription drug coverage in one convenient plan. Plus, most plans include the Humana Healthy Options Allowance to help pay for essentials like eligible groceries, utilities, rent, and more. Your allowance is conveniently loaded onto a prepaid card each month, and whatever you don't spend gets carried over to the next month. Plus, you could get other important benefits. Most plans include dental coverage with $0 copays for covered preventive services, vision coverage, including eye exams and a yearly allowance for eyewear, even hearing benefits with routine hearing exams and coverage toward hearing aids. And you could pay nothing for covered prescriptions all year long. You'll also get $0 copays for routine vaccines and telehealth visits. And you'll have access to Humana's multiple large plan networks of doctors, hospitals, and pharmacies. Best of all, if you have Medicare and Medicaid, you may be eligible to enroll in a Humana Medicare Advantage dual eligible special needs plan right now. So if you have Medicare and Medicaid, call now to see if there's a plan in your area that could give you extra benefits. A knowledgeable licensed Humana sales agent will explain your coverage options, even help you enroll over the phone. It's that easy. Call today and we'll also send this free guide. But now is the time. The annual enrollment period ends December 7th. Humana, a more human way to health care.
Welcome back. Let's get you back inside of the South Carolina courtroom we are watching in the case against Bud Ackerman. This case is winding down. We're getting close to hearing whether the jury is going to believe the prosecution that he intentionally drove his truck into his estranged wife's new boyfriend, or if they side with the defense, who claims that this was all an accident. And we're hearing from an important witness. A medical examiner is on the stand testifying about the injuries that the victim, Davis McClendon, sustained during that crash. Let's go in for more.
So there could be different areas of the brain that get injured. There were some very minimal areas of bruising, we call cortical contusions, but it's bruising in the substance of the brain itself. They were not extensive, but they were noticeable. That included the underside of the frontal lobe, as well as on the outside of the left temporal lobe, again, approximately where I'm indicating on myself. And there was tearing or laceration of part of the brain called the cerebellum in the back part of the head, again, roughly as I'm indicating on myself, back here.
Now, Doc, you love your job, don't you?
Yes.
What's cortical mean?
Cortical basically means surface. In this context, we talk about the cortex of the brain. We're talking about the tissue around the outer surface of the brain.
Okay.
There were some additional small hemorrhages in the brainstem and extending to the basal ganglia above the brainstem. Again, just small areas of bruising or hemorrhage inside the substance of the brain itself. There was additionally bleeding, what we call intraventricular hemorrhage. So that's bleeding within some of the normal cavities inside the brain. So there's normal spaces that are inside the brain, and there was blood in those.
Number 7.
There were fractures of what we call, and I'll explain this a little bit more after I mention it, fractures of the anterior fossa, a middle hinge fracture, this is all part of the skull, a middle hinge fracture, a fracture through the back part of the skull, additional fractures on the left side of the base of the skull, and again, another fracture towards the back. So what we call the anterior fossa of the base of skull is that part of the skull that sits right above the eyes. That part of the bone of the skull is extremely thin, and it's very common for it to fracture even if there's an impact to the back of the head. That bone just above the eyes can actually fracture. What we call a middle hinge fracture is when the base of skull, basically between the ears, fractures, and so that part of the skull can rotate like a hinge because it's broken. And there were some additional fractures. The one substantial fracture was through the back part of the calvarium, back part of the skull, that went all the way down to where the brainstem connects to the spinal cord. So very severe, significant skull fractures.
And what could have caused that?
That would be very substantial blunt impact.
Okay.
Possibly more than one impact. So there could be an impact. We can see bruising under the scalp on the left side of the head, so that's one significant area of impact. We can see injury to the front part of the mouth, which is another area of impact, and we have a very large laceration to the back of the head, which is a significant area of impact. So there's an impact here, there's an impact here. That could be part of the same process, impacting here and then sliding sideways. And then, of course, the one to the back of the head, which had some leafy soil-type debris in it, which is consistent with impacting the ground and sliding across the ground. Again, moving down in the internal evidence of injury section, there were some hemorrhages in the tongue, 3 hemorrhages across the tongue.
What does that mean?
So
Across the tongue.
Yeah, so there's hemorrhage or bruising within the tongue itself. That could be related to impacts that occurred to the front part of the mouth, with part of the tongue being injured as part of that process. That would be the likely explanation.
Okay.
There was additional hemorrhage just left of the cervical spine, which is the neck part of the vertebrae, the neck part of the spine. That hemorrhage basically went from the left side of the neck all the way across the front part of the neck. There was some partial separation of what's called the hyoid bone, which is up here in the upper part of the neck, and there was fracture of the larynx as well as part of this whole process. So the larynx is kind of the voice box in the front part of the neck.
So there's a fracture of that?
Yes, so the larynx is made out of cartilage, so it's a little bit flexible, but it can fracture as well. If it's bent far enough, it will still fracture. That hemorrhage basically extended all the way down to the level of the clavicles.
All right, we're hitting the pause button on this testimony. We're going to bring in trial attorney Kelly Hyman to get some analysis on this case in general. Kelly, this is the jealous husband murder trial. Bud Ackerman is accused of meeting up at 1:30 a.m. with the victim and something going very terrible, this fatal collision. He says he didn't mean to, that the guy was standing in the middle of the road. Prosecution says no, this guy had just gotten out of his vehicle when he was plowed down by this Ford F-250. Your thoughts on whether or not, when the defense takes this case, that he has to take the stand?
In this case, what someone thinks happened is definitely going to be key, and that's ultimately up to the jury. Now, in the court of law, you're innocent until proven guilty, so the defense doesn't have to take the stand. He can talk to his counsel, and the counsel could say, yes, I really think you need to take the witness stand to tell your side of the story. However, ultimately, it's going to be their decision. But it's also important to remember, if he does tell his side of the story, then the state can come back and help use some of the evidence that they have already used to say, no, this is not the case. We have this evidence that shows that the victim just got out of the car. How do you explain this? How do you explain? So it opens up potentially a Pandora's box for him if he takes a witness stand.
Yeah, the defense is trying to argue mutual combat almost, that the victim wanted to fight, and perhaps they'll try to use what came out from the ex-wife. She wasn't an ex-wife yet, about 4 weeks before their divorce. But these men agreed to come talk. I mean, what do you think they thought was going to happen?
Well, what was the defendant's intent? And I think that's going to be key in this case, to see what was his state of mind and what was the intent. Did he have the intent, as the state says, to hit him, or did he have the intent not, and it was an accident?
Yeah, we'll see how the jury decides on this when they get this case. We're getting close. We're wrapping up the state's case. We have more testimony ahead in the jealous husband murder trial for Bud Ackerman. Stay with us.
At Consumer Cellular, we pride ourselves on getting you the exact same nationwide coverage as the leading carriers for up to half the cost. But don't worry, we've got a lot more than that going for us. Woo! Like this beautiful store in Arizona, for example. It's the perfect place for me to tell you a little bit more about our phones and how they can become your phones. You name it, we probably got it. We have the top smartphones from all the major companies. If it's state-of-the-art cameras you want with space-age metal housing, we got them. If you want a smartphone with lots of bells and whistles but won't break the bank, we've got that too. We even have flip phones like the Iris Flip. If you're someone that doesn't need all that mumbo-jumbo and just wants something simple. And now, we even have watches.
We do.
No matter what device you choose, you'll be happy to know that if your data needs change,
No problem.
with our SmartFlex feature, you don't have to sweat it. Like say you're on a road trip out west and end up using a bunch of data. We can simply flex you up to the next data tier for as little as $5. Then, when you get home, you can flex right back down with no penalty. So you only pay for what you actually need.
With Consumer Cellular, you get the exact same nationwide coverage as the leading carriers for up to half the cost.
I know what you're thinking. What if I don't have one of these amazing stores in my town yet? Can I get these phones sent to me?
Yes, you can.
Will our award-winning customer service help me switch over or add a line for $15 to make my own family plan?
Of course they will.
Is it easy?
Easy as pie.
You see that tower out there? It's a beauty, and there are thousands more like it, working hard for me and you, supplying 5G coverage to this beautiful nation of ours. We know how important coverage is. That's why we offer a risk-free guarantee. If you're not satisfied within 30 days of activation, you can pay nothing. Oh, look.
New customers save $50 when you sign up today. Call 1-800-918-5644. Find us in Target or visit consumercellular.com to switch today.
She knows what she's talking about. Pick up the phone.
Hey, you folks. Matt McCoy here to talk about the AARP auto insurance program from the Hartford and why people love it so much. This is a good movie. Looks like it got a 94% thumbs up. Now, that's pretty high. Even that's less than the 96% of customers 50 and over who recommend the Hartford. In fact, 4 out of 5 AARP members who switched to the Hartford from companies like Allstate, State Farm, and Geico got a lower rate. And many of them saved hundreds on their auto insurance. Not an AARP member? Hey, not to worry. The Hartford can help you join in minutes.
To start saving on your insurance today, get your free quote by calling the Hartford at 1-800-418-5830 or visit trusthartford.com.
I hear this place is great. 90% of diners recommend it. That doesn't beat the 96% of customers who recommend the Hartford. You just can't beat benefits like disappearing deductible. Plus, they offer new car replacement.
New car replacement?
Yep, if your new car is totaled, the Hartford will pay the full replacement cost.
The camera on this phone is amazing.
It's only a 93% satisfaction rating, though. Still less than the Hartford. You know what else? You can save even more if you bundle home and auto. For the savings, benefits, and best-in-class claims experience you deserve, make the switch today.
Join the millions of drivers 50 and over who switch to the AARP Auto Insurance Program from The Hartford and get the savings you want and the award-winning claims experience you deserve. To get your free, no-obligation quote and see how much you could save, call The Hartford at 1-800-418-5830 or visit trusthartford.com. The Bucks got your back.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Judge Ashley Wilcott. Of course, honored to be with you today. We're in several courtrooms across the country this afternoon here at Court TV. In South Carolina, defendant William Bud Ackerman is accused of fatally striking Kenneth Davis McClendon with his car in the early morning hours of May 7th, 2023. McClendon had recently begun dating Ackerman's soon-to-be ex-wife, and the two men had agreed to meet up and talk when McClendon was struck by that truck. And in Florida, our newest live trial kicked off today with opening statements in the home renovation murder trial. Corey Benderman is accused of killing his client after she threatened to sue him for his not completing a bathroom project. We'll bring you updates from that trial throughout the day today. But for now, let's head back to South Carolina, a really compelling trial, rather. The medical examiner is testifying to the victim, Davis McClendon's injuries. This is direct examination by the state.
Taking off 11, number 12.
I looked at the back part of the neck, again, for additional injuries. So that's a little bit of an additional examination to see if there was a more obvious injury to the back part of the neck. There was hemorrhage that extended from the laceration all the way down to the upper part of the back of the neck, but I did not find a neck fracture. There was a very small amount of blood in each chest cavity, so about 50 milliliters on the right and 25 on the left. It's a very small amount, which is probably just coming down from the upper injuries in the neck. It can kind of ooze down and get in there. I did some additional examination of the lower extremities because of the external injuries that we saw, and anytime that there is a well, in certain pedestrian type cases, I'll do what we call cut downs of the extremities, and there was some hemorrhage related to or around the area of the right femur fracture. And then extending down to around the knee and roughly the area of abrasion that we saw and described on the right leg.
Well, what did that tell you as a forensic pathologist, those injuries?
It basically just supports what we already saw in the external exam, but part of the reason we do that internally is that occasionally we have cases where we don't see very much on the outside, but when we do these, what we call cut downs into the subcutaneous tissues, sometimes there's fairly substantial injury. It just doesn't, because it doesn't involve bone, we don't always see it on the x-ray, and because it doesn't visually involve skin, we don't always see it during the external exam. So in certain cases, but not all cases, we do that additional, or I would do that additional examination.
This may be a terrible question, but so your internal injuries were consistent with the external?
Yes.
Basically?
Yes.
Okay. After you've completed internal exam, and that I counted 22 external evidence of injury and 14 internal evidence of injury. Do you disagree with that?
That's how I have it documented. Again, within each line, that's sort of, those numbers are related to lines of descriptions. So within those lines, sometimes there's 2 or 3 or more individual injuries. So it's kind of a reference point, but yes, 20, I believe you said 22, and I'm looking at my report, 22 and 14, correct.
And once you got through, and you kind of went through his whole body.
Yes.
What do you do next? You gather any blood, or what do you do?
As part of the internal examination, we do collect specimens. It's usually, but it's various fluid specimens. So it's usually, if we can get it, fluid from the eye, urine, and blood for various purposes, but primarily for toxicology purposes or potential toxicology analysis.
You know, if you familiar with the toxicology results in this case?
I have seen it, yes.
And what were was it a 0.11, basically the toxicology?
That's my recollection. I do not have that report in front of me, however.
I think we both reviewed this with you earlier, correct? I mean, everybody's seen it. Your Honor, I don't think there's any objection to you, Hannon, just referring to that. Is that the toxicology report?
Yes, it is. So this is a toxicology report issued by the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, or SLED, and they perform a lot of the postmortem toxicology for us.
So fluids come from, it's not unusual to come from an autopsy to SLED, right?
Correct.
Okay. And one of those findings was a 0.11 in Davis McClendon as far as alcohol, correct?
Basically, yes. So there's some of the ocular fluid, or the fluid that was taken from the eye, was analyzed. The ethanol or alcohol result from that was 0.118. And then it was also performed in blood that was taken, and that was reported as 0.110.
In addition to that, was there evidence of some prescribed Adderall in there?
Yes, so that gets reported as what's called amphetamine. That's not the same as methamphetamine. Methamphetamine can turn into amphetamine, but normally we see them both together. In this case, there was just amphetamine, and that's consistent with a reported history of attention deficit disorder, which can be treated by something called Adderall or similar medications, which in toxicology we see as amphetamine. The level that's reported here is 120 nanograms per milliliter, and to the best of my understanding, that would be within prescribed ranges.
Okay. Now, Doctor, going back to the injuries you've described, how many autopsies have you performed on vehicle pedestrians that you knew were a vehicle pedestrian? Is that a fair question?
Sure. So just on pedestrians, although I haven't calculated that number, I don't know precisely, I would estimate in the neighborhood of 100 or so.
And you've described the injuries to Mr. Clendon's mouth, this area. And have you seen the picture of the Ford F-250?
I have, yes.
Okay, and I think it's 49, but as Miss Danielle Cologne is pulling that up, if I misspoke, this is Exhibit 18. Photo 814 on Exhibit 18 for the record.
Okay.
Sorry. And Doctor, can you see that?
Yes.
And you've seen this before?
Maybe not a specific picture, but a similar picture of a little bit wider view, but I recognize the damage.
And based on your examination of Davis McClendon and looking at this truck, are those injuries on Davis McClendon consistent with the injury to this truck? Because this truck will cause those injuries to his face.
Yes, I think so.
And the injuries, the femur that's broken and the other injury with the two parallel lines I pointed out up there, how could those injuries have been received in this case, based on your training and observation of Davis and the evidence?
So typically, when there's a leg fracture, it's usually related to a bumper or something that's protruding slightly from the vehicle. There can be other explanations, but that's the typical way that occurs.
And these injuries, I think you testified, were pretty close, inch-wise.
Pretty close in height in terms of distance from his heel, which is an estimate or an approximation of standing position.
And you described an injury to the back of Mr. McClendon's head, the trauma to the back.
Yes.
Were you aware that where he landed? Have you seen those pictures?
I have seen photos.
Okay. And are the injuries on the back of his head consistent with where he would have landed?
Yes.
Okay. Did these injuries did they knock him out? Did he go unconscious?
So with the injuries that involve his skull, with the multiple skull fractures and severe fractures, I think most likely upon receiving those injuries, he probably would have lost. I would be surprised if he did not lose consciousness.
Okay. So in your opinion as a forensic pathologist, would he have been able to speak after these?
I'm sorry.
Would he have been able to speak after receiving these injuries? Speak?
In my opinion, no, not likely.
And his ultimate demise would have been how long?
Hard to know for sure, but these injuries are significant and severe. The injury to his head is likely to have impacted his ability to breathe. So loss of consciousness and then loss of control, even subconscious control of vital functions such as breathing would be reasonably likely. So that death could occur anywhere from a few minutes later to potentially hours later, but more likely on the order of minutes, depending on how badly he lost function. And I don't have a clear way of knowing that for certain.
Would he have been able to get up and fight?
No.
Would he have been able to get up and fight?
No, not in my opinion.
Sure. Would you please tell the ladies and gentlemen of this jury, Dr. Kyle Shaw, do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty as to the cause of death of Davis McClendon?
Yes. My opinion of cause of death is multiple blunt force injuries due to pedestrian struck by motor vehicle.
That's all we have. Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Swirling, any cross-examination?
Yes, sir, just brief. Can you indulge me one moment?
Sure.
Doctor, there really is no dispute about the fact that
And before we head to break, we want to remind you of two big trials beginning next week. First in Georgia, the wife of a prominent attorney will be heading to trial on Monday for the death of her husband. Melanie Ferris is accused of shooting her husband, Gary Ferris, inside their home and then burning his body. And in Florida, the long-awaited, this is going to deliver defendant Sarah Boone. Her trial starts on Monday with jury selection. Of course, she's the one accused of zipping up her boyfriend in a suitcase and then leaving him there to die, all while filming the entire ordeal on her phone. That video is part of this trial. We'll have both of these trials starting Monday right here on Court TV Live. In the meantime, stay tuned. We'll be right back after this short break.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, new developments in the murder of Anna Walsh. We're taking a closer look at how Trooper Proctor from the Karen Reed case could play a role in the case against Brian Walsh.
Closing Arguments tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
Sarah Boone is charged with second-degree murder after her boyfriend suffocated inside of a suitcase.
Karen, I can't breathe, babe.
I thought he was okay.
The Suitcase Murder Trial. Live coverage starting Monday morning, 8/7 Central on Court TV.
Hi, my name is Damian Clark. And if you have both Medicare and Medicaid, I have some really encouraging news that you'll definitely want to hear. Depending on the plans available in your area, you may be eligible to get extra benefits with the Humana Medicare Advantage Dual Eligible Special Needs Plan. Most plans include the Humana Healthy Options Allowance, a monthly allowance to help pay for eligible groceries, utilities, rent, and over-the-counter items like vitamins, pain relievers, first aid supplies, and more. The Healthy Options allowance is loaded onto a prepaid card each month, and whatever you don't spend carries over from each month. You can pay nothing for covered prescriptions all year long, even name brand drugs. All plans have $0 copays for covered preventive dental services, which include 2 free cleanings a year, as well as fillings. They may also have vision coverage, including vision exams, and a yearly allowance towards eyewear, such as lenses or contacts. Even hearing coverage, which includes routine hearing exams and coverage towards hearing aids. You'll even have a $0 copay for routine vaccines and telehealth visits. Plus, your doctor, hospital, and pharmacy may already be part of our large Humana networks. So call the number on your screen now to speak with a licensed Humana sales agent. Wouldn't you love benefits like a monthly allowance? To help pay for eligible groceries, utilities, rent, and over-the-counter items. So if you have Medicare and Medicaid, call the number on your screen now and speak with a licensed Humana sales agent. If you're eligible, they can even help enroll you over the phone in a Humana Medicare Advantage dual eligible special needs plan. And remember, annual enrollment ends on December 7th. So call now. Humana, a more human way to healthcare.
An important message for Americans age 50 to 85.
Oh my gosh, you're still using Mom's old coffee pot.
It's my inheritance.
Well, it is a family heirloom.
You know what? The kids can just sell it to pay for my funeral.
It's a good thing you have life insurance.
Life insurance with our family history.
Don't you know about Colonial Penn? It's guaranteed acceptance whole life insurance with no medical questions asked.
I'm on a fixed income.
Who isn't?
You have it?
We all do. John, Maria, even Paul with all of his medical problems.
Colonial Penn.
That's right. Colonial Penn Life Insurance Company. As you get older, your health may change. Colonial Penn understands that. And we don't think it should keep you from getting life insurance to help protect your family. That's why we guarantee acceptance to everyone aged 50 to 85. No health questions, no medical exam. Applying is easy. And you have your choice of options starting at $9.95 a month, a few dollars a week, 35 cents a day. And your price will never go up. A lifetime rate lock guarantees it. This protection can last a lifetime, too. Some insurance policies end once you reach a certain age. Not this one. Pay your bill, and it's yours to keep for as long as you'd like.
How did you apply?
Called for information, got an application, filled it out, sent it back. It took a few minutes. And look at this. They sent me this free beneficiary planner just for calling. I filled in all my important information and final wishes. Now my kids will have everything they need in one place.
Ready to learn more? Call for free information and your free gift. There's no obligation. Every policy we issue comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. You have nothing to lose. Why wait? Call now.
Call 1-800-709-6100 for your free information and your free gift. That's 1-800-709-6100. There's no obligation. 1-800-709-6100. Call now.
Before we get back into court, we have a quick update out of Tennessee, where 2 siblings convicted in their mom's death were sentenced to life in prison today. Both Karen and Michael Murray were found guilty back in June of first-degree murder and aggravated neglect of their 68-year-old mother, Sheila Murray. Sheila died from complications at the hospital in 2019 after paramedics found her at home covered in fecal matter and with a bone sticking out of her leg. Today, the judge heard from both the defense and the state before handing down the sentence. Let's take a listen.
These are poor people that were put in the worst circumstances, something that they were completely unqualified to handle. Their mother gets sick in a way they think they can handle. Clearly, things got beyond their ability to do so.
Throughout the trial, there was this notation that somehow because people are poor, they don't know how to take care of family members. I think that does a disservice to people that somehow because they're poor, they can't take care of people when every day, all across the world, people who are poor and impoverished are taking care of people, know how people should be treated. And to not know that there is an infection, a huge infection that is rotting through their mother's back, If they are taking care of her and cleaning her like they say they are, there's no way you miss that and don't know that she needs medical attention. By their own testimony, they had phones and stuff. They could access the outside world. They could have called 911. They could have done anything, but they chose not to. The defense says that this is a unique set of circumstances. No, it's not.
Extremely tragic case. Ms. Sheila Murray should have been cared for in a setting with medical professionals, and Mr. and Ms. Murray should be living their lives. As Karen Murray said, they have their own lives to live. Regrettably, both of you will be living the rest of your lives absent any action on the deal in custody of the Department of Corrections. And you are therefore sentenced, each of you, to a life sentence.
We'll have full highlights from Karen and Michael Murray's sentencing coming up later this evening. Now let's turn back to South Carolina for the jealous husband murder trial. Defendant William Bud Ackerman is accused of striking and killing the boyfriend of his estranged wife with his pickup truck. Kenneth Davis McClendon was found deceased outside of his vehicle at an intersection at approximately 1:30 a.m. back in May of last year. Over the course of their investigations, detectives say they determined that the crash that killed McClendon was intentional and that Ackerman had used his truck to hit the victim. Before we head back into court, I want to bring in our guest this hour, trial attorney Kelly Hyman and criminal defense attorney Marie Pereira. What a treat for me to have both of you here on set. We just finished watching the direct examination, and the last part of this testimony about the autopsy was the cause of death. A lot of words to say something you summed up, but basically multiple blunt force injuries due to the pedestrian being hit by a vehicle. Marie, how would you describe that?
He got hit by a big truck, 7,000 pounds, like the prosecutor said during the opening. Bam! And that was it. And he suffered injuries, and that caused the death.
Let me ask you, Kelly, real quick. Intentional or not, I mean, we know that's what the prosecution has to prove. He's presumed innocent. They are saying it was murder. This was premeditated. This was intentional. Your thoughts?
Well, ultimately, that's going to be up to the jury. But when we look at this, we look at where exactly the injuries were. And I think that's definitely going to play a key part, because was this intentional? Did he take the car, the truck, and ram right into him? Or was this some type of accident where he allegedly was turning around and then the guy got hit? Now, in either one of those scenarios, potentially the damage that is done to the victim will be different. So ultimately, the jury's going to look at that, but I think that's going to play a key role in this case.
Really good point. The forensics make a difference in terms of the jury deciding that, I think. Now, Marie, you know, I had to come back to you and ask about, we never blame victims, and we are very good about not blaming victims, but there's a third person who is also a victim in this case. It's the estranged wife at the time, now divorced from the defendant, who was the girlfriend of the victim. Did she have any role in this scenario?
Sadly, I think she does, and I will call her Messy Meredith, because at the end of the day, she knew that her husband was crazy jealous. He had been stalking her the entire night. So she's sitting there with her boyfriend, and he's calling and calling. So she shows the boyfriend, who's also tipsy, 0.11, okay, the call. And she essentially sets up a play date at 1:30 in the morning between two drunk men, both of whom she's sleeping with, the other one who's devastated, and they're not even fully divorced yet. There's a divorce in process. And then she joins them together, 1:30 in the morning, two men who want her, who've had her, one who's crushed, and then they meet. What did she think was going to happen? I'm not blaming her, because people have free will, but maybe in hindsight, don't link them, don't plan a play date for a discussion at 1:30 in the morning between two hurt, one hurt, and one very angry man.
And you know what victims always say after the fact is, I may have been scared, I may have been worried, but I never thought he or she, the defendant, would do that. I never thought he'd actually kill somebody by running over him with a truck.
You know, I want to take that back because she knew. Because when she came and the nanny saw the body of the victim, she ran and she hid because she thought he was still around. Why are you hiding, and why did you automatically think it was him that did it? Because you know your man. You know he was mad. You should have never set that meeting up. And if they set it up themselves, you should have discouraged it.
Agree or disagree quickly before we go back to court, Kelly?
With all due respect, I disagree with your position. I think we have to look at ultimately how he was killed and who killed him, and that is the culprit in this matter.
All right, we're going to see what happens. Let's get back into court now. The medical examiner is still on the stand, but the defense is now going to cross-examine him. Let's go back in.
That Ms. McClinton suffered was a result of the automobile situation about being hit by a car, correct? I mean, no, you haven't seen anything to dispute that.
I have not.
And we haven't even raised that issue, have we?
Not to me.
As far as you know. But there were multiple injuries of blunt force trauma, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and you've seen, would you say, at least 50 pedestrian, or was it more than that?
It's probably more than that. It's probably in the neighborhood of 100, give or take, that I've personally done.
Okay. And injuries such as this are consistent with pedestrians who get struck by vehicles?
Correct.
Correct?
Yes.
It's most unfortunate, but that's what happens when somebody gets hit by a car.
Yes.
These multiple fractures and abrasions and the road rash, and all the things you described, correct?
Yes, all those things can occur.
Okay. I believe the EMS, when they got there, there was no pattern, he appeared to be dead at that point when they got there. And are you aware of that? Have you may have been aware of that?
Yes, that's the best of my understanding. I did review that EMS report, although it's been a while.
Okay, so I mean, basically, it appears that he may have died instantly, correct?
Rapidly, I think would be a more accurate term.
Rapidly?
Yes.
Okay, and he would have been hit and not had consciousness at that point. Is that correct?
Likely, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me just ask you a couple of other questions, because I'd like to ask you some questions about the toxicology report. 0.118 is close to 0.12. Is that, I mean, pretty much from my second or third grade education.
Sure, if we round up.
So let me ask you this. You're aware of the fact that in South Carolina, if you're driving a vehicle with a 0.08, there's a presumption you're under the influence, correct?
That's my understanding of the legal definitions, although I don't...
No, I'm not asking you to opine about that, but that's what your understanding is.
Yes.
So this would have been over a 0.08, correct?
Correct.
And you understood that he was driving to where the accident happened?
It is my understanding that is how he arrived at that location originally.
Somebody with a 0.118, as the alcohol percentages increase in the body, and there's a change in behavior, correct? I mean, as far as pathology is concerned, you're aware of the fact that there's an increase in change in behavior.
In some people, yes. Every individual is different, so some people with a very small amount of alcohol will display changes or differences, whereas someone else with a much higher amount may not display those changes or differences.
Right, and there's really no way to know, but some of the factors that we do know that someone at a 0.118, there could be a change in behavior, correct?
In some individuals, yes.
Correct. So we're at that level. An individual with a 0.118, one of the signs of someone who, again, we don't know a particular individual, but one of them is losing judgment, correct? That's one of the things in pathology that we know.
Again, in general, just to be clear, my interpretation of toxicology, in other words, what I do for a living, part of my specialty, really focuses on death and how and when it affects the physiologic cause of death. And that depends on the individual case. But my interpretation is generally that The intoxication level or how an individual responds is widely variable. Depends on the individual case.
All right, and I'm not asking you to opine about it, but I'm just talking about general characteristics. Having looked at some pathology books, there are charts dealing with alcohol levels in the pathology books.
Yes, there are some statistical tables and charts that say, you know, at or around this level, this can generally happen. But again, from an individual point of view, it varies.
Okay. So, but you would agree that as alcohol content increases in someone, some people have impaired judgment, correct?
Some people, sure.
Some people get aggressive, correct?
That may happen.
Some people really have resistance to pain as the alcohol level increases.
Again, it's highly variable.
Yeah,
sure.
and I'm not trying to pin you down. I'm just asking you as I mean, you're an expert, a pathologist, and I haven't disputed that. But as the alcohol level increases, these factors become an issue, can become an issue.
Can.
Okay. And aggressiveness, correct, is another factor that can be you could show up, somebody can be aggressive as the alcohol level increases.
Some
correct?
people who are actually intoxicated will be more aggressive, others less. It really depends on the individual.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. And I just wanted, from a pathology standpoint, and because having reviewed some pathology books, those charts are there, and I just wanted to see if you agree that as the alcohol level increases, some of these characteristics can be there.
Can,
correct?
sure.
Okay.
Sure.
And let me ask you, Adderall. Apparently, he had a prescription for Adderall, and Adderall sort of. Tell me what the effects of Adderall are, is from your standpoint in pathology.
Sure. Again, I don't treat people with ADD, so how that affects people in a prescription sense is different from what I'm looking at when I look at a case from a potential cause of death point of view. So those things are a little bit different. So if at low levels or at therapeutic levels, I probably would not be the best person to indicate what therapeutic levels might or might not do to an individual.
Okay. I mean, as a doctor, you would agree that someone who is taking Adderall, which is used for ADHD, should not be drinking, correct?
I can't speak to that. Okay.
Would you recommend someone drink if they're on Adderall?
I sustain.
Okay. All right. Do you aware of, in pathology, is there a synergistic effect between alcohol and something like Adderall?
I'm not aware of a classic synergistic effect as there can be with some other drugs and medications that are very, very similar types of medications, so I can't speak to that specifically.
And I don't know if this was the objection that you sustained, but do you know what the effect of what happens when someone's taking Adderall? Do you know?
Again, I can't speak to that.
Okay, that's fine. I didn't know if that was the objection or not.
Sustain.
Okay. That's all I have.
Okay. All right.
Very briefly.
Yes, sir.
Alcohol affects people different ways.
Most definitely.
Some happy.
Yes.
Some sad, some angry.
I can't testify.
Yeah. All right. Rephrase, Mr. Matters, if you would.
Does alcohol affect people differently?
Yes.
Okay. In what way?
Well, again, different people respond in different ways. Some people go into party mode. Some people get depressed. Some people, it really depends on the individual. That's, again, based on cases that I've seen leading up to a death. That's the history that I get with it, as well as personal life experience. But yes, everyone acts and reacts differently, and sometimes it's consistent from episode to episode of drinking. Sometimes it varies. It just depends.
All right, Dr. Shaw, you can step down.
Thank you.
You are free to leave the courthouse. You're more than welcome to remain with us.
We're speculating on things, giving his opinion where maybe he wouldn't have had there been an objection, but there wasn't, so that's the conclusion of his testimony. Stay with us. Coming up next, the state calls their final witness, an investigator who responded to the crime scene on the night of that fatal crash. You don't want to miss this. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm John.
Hey, I'm Janine.
I'm Steve, and I've been a Consumer Cellular customer for 8 years.
3 years.
11 years.
When they asked me if I want to be in a testimonial commercial,
I said sure.
I said sure.
But I got a tournament to get ready for.
Not if the fish are biting.
But it's a beautiful day. We started looking for another provider primarily because we felt like we were paying way too much.
I chose to switch because of the savings. It was amazing, way cheaper than where I was.
I could hardly believe that my bill was so small. I'm paying less than $30 a month. It's a great service for a great price.
Unlimited talk and text with flexible data plans starting at $20. Plus, for a limited time, new customers save $50 when you sign up today.
The place that I live in is heavily forested. There's a lot of trees. What got me to be a customer, really, to tell you the truth, was the reception and the coverage of Consumer Cellular.
I travel a lot. I need coverage, no matter where I am. And so whether I'm in Augusta, Georgia, or Pebble Beach, California, I know that I'm going to be covered with Consumer Cellular.
I love to go far away places, remote places. I haven't had trouble with coverage, no drop calls.
Consumer Cellular offers fast, reliable nationwide coverage. Plus, for a limited time, new customers save $50 when you sign up today.
When we switched over from Verizon to Consumer Cellular, it was a really painless process.
Just kept the same phone, I kept the same number.
Anytime I call customer service, it's U.S.-based.
It's nice to know when I have an issue that I can have a real conversation.
Customer service has been great. I just get a bill at the end of the month. It's on auto pay, and it's super easy.
And as AARP members, we also get a nice discount.
That's right. AARP members receive a 5% discount. Make the switch now to the most awarded brand by J.D. Power. New customers save $50 when you sign up today.
Call 800-664-3547.
Or visit consumercellular.com to switch today.
This is a story about the one who keeps it all moving. He is measured, precise. He thinks ahead, stocks the right parts, and knows just where to find them. Because for the one, this facility is about more than business. The industrial-grade products you need delivered fast. Call, click Grainger.com, or stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
I have a structured settlement and I need cash now. Call J.G. Wentworth, 877 cash now.
I will earn annuity, but I need cash now.
Call J.G. Wentworth, 877 cash now.
It's your money. Use it when you need it.
Call J.G. Wentworth, 877 cash now.
Ready to party? I'm talking about Jackpot Party, the leading free-to-play mobile slots game that always gives you more. Download Jackpot Party for free and get a 45 million coin bonus. Jackpot Party, a party in every spin.
At Bombas, we make the most comfortable socks in the history of feet. So comfortable, you'll wish you had more. Visit Bombas.com and get 20% off your first order.
1 second, Grandma. This guy's gonna buy my car. Okay.
You need Carvana. Entering plate number. No accidents, right?
No.
Generating offer. Carvana can pick it up tomorrow.
That's an amazing offer.
Sell your car the easy way with Carvana.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Ashley Wilcott. Thank you so much for being with us. We will get you back to court in just a moment. But first, an update out of Ohio for our other live trial, the medical assistant murder trial. Defendant Quentin Nixon, who is representing himself, is accused of gunning down 34-year-old Tony Westover at a house party. But Nixon says he fired in self-defense after a fight broke out. Here's the update. The state has now arrested their case in chief. That happened earlier today, but not before the court heard a recorded interview with Nixon where he told police he was in fear for his life.
It seems like everybody was trying to get that gun out of your hand, and you panicked. You said Brian, Adam, and the girl was...
They didn't start trying to do that until after I shot.
Okay. So they didn't try to get the gun from you until after you shot.
It was weird.
No, it makes sense. Because if someone had a gun and then they shot, that would normally be when someone would try to wrestle a gun away from someone.
He had Adam right here with his gun training on.
Yeah.
Then he moved over there and grabbed some printer and started printing out. I'm just... I was wrong. I was in fear for my life.
I was in fear for my life. You just heard him say it. Court ended early for the day there due to scheduling issues and will reconvene next week for the start of the defense's case in chief, where we do expect the defendant, Quentin Nixon, to testify. Now let's go back to South Carolina versus William Bud Ackerman. Prosecutors say that Ackerman drove his pickup truck and his wife's new boyfriend, killing him in May of last year. The defense claims it was an accident fueled by the victim's desire to fight the defendant. On the stand right now is the state's final witness. This is Captain Mike Murdoch. Testimony just beginning, direct examination by the state.
For all of the data,
okay.
so I don't have firsthand knowledge of all of that.
That's fine. Can we prepared a map, just a map of the area. This will aid in your testimony. And I think this is states 58 without objection.
I don't have any objection to it.
Sir?
I have no objection.
Okay. All right, 58 into evidence for the state.
Somebody's going to tell us the best place to put this, Judge. I think we're...
We have a podium.
We do have a little stand of some sort. Where would it be?
I apologize.
That's all right.
Is that a Google overhead?
Yes. Just going to get into the room.
You want to come over here where you can see? There you go. You'll need to step down for this, I believe.
Yes, sir.
Cap, you have to keep your voice up, as I know you will. You mind coming down, Cap? Now, Captain, you recognize this as an aerial photo of some of the locations we talked about?
Yes, sir.
Okay, can you, and I've got these stickers we're trying to get read, can you point out Key West on here?
Key West Club's going to be right around in here.
And you then testified that he then suspended went to Tally Ho?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us where Tally Ho is?
Just a couple of them. Tally Ho will be in this area.
And then where did the defendant go after that?
Then he went to, based on the investigation of what I have learned, it went to Lakeshore Drive, which is the residence of Davis McClendon, lived on Lakeshore Drive.
Okay, and that's been testified previously. Davis McClendon lived on Lakeshore Drive?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Where did the defendant go after that?
He went from there, can't give me a red. Then he went, Lakeshore Drive is here, you basically cross over 72, 221 to break on the lake.
Okay. Now, you're familiar with Break on the Lake?
Yes, sir.
And I think we had a Patrick Hinderling who put the video in of Break on the Lake.
I wasn't present for the testimony, but I believe there was one, yes, sir.
Okay, and you are aware of the video from Break on the Lake, correct?
Yes, sir, I'm aware there is a video from there.
We need to squeeze in another break. Just a reminder, this is the last state's witness, so the jury will have all the evidence from the state, but then that defense will have an opportunity to present any evidence if they choose to. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
When they couldn't sufficiently scare him, they killed him.
A young jogger chased and gunned down in South Georgia.
Ahmaud Arbery was hunted down.
Once that video got released to the public, everything changed.
They made their decision to attack Ahmaud Arbery in their driveways.
Should we have been chasing him? I don't know.
Victim to Verdict with Ted Rollins. All new Sunday night, 8, 7 Central.
Only on Court TV.
Stay ahead of your moderate to severe eczema and show off clearer skin and less itch with Dupixent, the #1 prescribed biologic by dermatologists and allergists that helps heal your skin from within. Serious allergic reactions can occur that can be severe. Tell your doctor about new or worsening eye problems such as eye pain or vision changes, including blurred vision, joint aches and pain, or a parasitic infection. Don't change or stop asthma medicines without talking to your doctor. Ask your eczema specialist about Dupixent.
I'm interested in trying these new weight loss shots, but I need it to be more affordable because my insurance doesn't cover it. I'm not sure which online provider to trust, and I want to ask a doctor a lot of questions.
You don't have to whisper. At Henry Meds, our knowledgeable providers demystify compounded semaglutide, the same active ingredient in brand name weight management meds. If you're eligible for treatment, your medication will be shipped to your door for just $2.97 a month. Join thousands of others who trust Henry Meds for weight management medication.
Pretty Litter was the one that changed my world when it comes to cats.
My house never smells like cat litter. I don't have to worry about, if he's sick or not because I could tell by the color of the health monitor.
Because Pretty Litter changed colors, I was able to get my cat Larry to the vet and get him the help that he needed.
My favorite part about having it delivered, it's convenient, it's there when I need it.
It's different than any litter I've ever seen or used, which is why I love it.
So give it a try. Visit prettylitter.com today. You'll find them in cities, towns, and suburbs all across America. Millions of Americans who have Medicare and Medicaid, but may be missing benefits they could really use. Extra benefits they may be eligible to receive at no extra cost. And if you have Medicare and Medicaid, you may be able to get extra benefits too through a Humana Medicare Advantage dual-eligible special needs plan. Call now to see if you qualify. With the Humana Medicare Advantage dual-eligible special needs plan, you could have doctor, hospital, and prescription drug coverage in one convenient plan. Plus, most plans include the Humana Healthy Options Allowance to help pay for essentials like eligible groceries, utilities, rent, and more. Your allowance is conveniently loaded onto a prepaid card each month, and whatever you don't spend gets carried over to the next month. Plus, you could get other important benefits. Most plans include dental coverage with $0 copays for covered preventive services, vision coverage, including eye exams and a yearly allowance for eyewear, even hearing benefits with routine hearing exams and coverage toward hearing aids. And you could pay nothing for covered prescriptions all year long. You'll also get $0 copays for routine vaccines and telehealth visits. And you'll have access to Humana's multiple large plan networks of doctors, hospitals, and pharmacies. Best of all, if you have Medicare and Medicaid, you may be eligible to enroll in a Humana Medicare Advantage dual-eligible special needs plan right now. So if you have Medicare and Medicaid, call now to see if there's a plan in your area that could give you extra benefits. A knowledgeable licensed Humana sales agent will explain your coverage options, even help you enroll over the phone. It's that easy. Call today and we'll also send this free guide. But now is the time. The annual enrollment period ends December 7th. Humana, a more human way to health care.
Let's head back to South Carolina now, where the case against Bud Ackerman is winding down. We are getting close to hearing whether jurors believe he intentionally drove his truck into his estranged wife's new boyfriend, or if they side with the defense, who says it was an accident. Right now, the jury is hearing from Captain Mike Murdoch with the Greenville Police Department. He's laying out some of the key locations noted in his investigation.
Is this the parking lot at the outside of Break on the Lake?
Yes, sir, it appears to be.
Would you dispute at the top it says 0037?
No, sir, I wouldn't dispute it.
Okay. Whose truck is that?
Bud Ackerman's.
What directions does the car appear to turn?
Appeared to turn, I have to play it back. Appeared to turn left going towards the bridge.
And based on your investigation, when it turned left to go to the bridge, where did it go?
Across the bridge to the Port Grill, what used to be the dock years ago in the Lawrence County.
Can you put a sticker there?
Yes, sir.
Used to be. What did it used to be?
Used to be the dock years ago. I don't know when it changed hands or why, but.
And based on your investigation of the infotainment center in the F-250 truck, where did he go next?
But on my information provided to me, it left there and came back over to right here to where his residence is on Old Abbeville Highway.
Okay. And did he pass his residence or did he go in his residence?
If I'm not mistaken on the information provided to me, this Rivers Run's come out, he passed it and then backed up.
Okay. And where did he go after that?
Then he eventually winds up down here at Abbott and Sawgrass.
Did he go on Abbott and Sawgrass once or twice?
I think.
That's not leading. I'm asking what.
No, not the leading is the source of the information.
I'm sorry, Judge. I didn't mean to respond.
I mean, my problem is that is he being accurate about it? That's my problem.
I think the travel of the defendant is already into evidence through the video of yesterday, whatever the amount of time it was. So that's already into evidence. So I don't see a problem with Mr. Meadows asking Captain Murdoch these questions.
Yeah, I understand it's in evidence, but it's just the interpretation. That's what I'm concerned about, because I'm not sure that Captain Murdoch really knows this information. That's my problem.
Well, if he's familiar with the evidence that has been put in the record, then I'm going to allow him to.
Yes, sir.
Okay. May proceed.
It goes down in there. To be specific, I don't know how many times and what but I know that it eventually ends at Abbott and Sawgrass.
Okay. And his parents' house is where?
His parents' house is right here.
Okay. And Abbott and Sawgrass is where?
It's right here, kind of under this right here.
You want to put a sticker there?
Oh, yeah, but I'm going through the ridge.
And if approximately, if you know, it was in evidence, do you know how many miles this is?
No, sir.
Okay. Then you can have a seat back. Thank you. Captain, who decided to call in MATE, the the Highway Patrol folks?
I did. I made that decision.
Okay. And why?
Still with us, attorneys Kelly Hyman, Marie Pereira. I'm smiling because we were all leaning in as we're watching everything on this, ladies, and all the video. He drove through that parking lot. Let me start with you, Kelly, beforehand. Does that mean premeditation to you?
Intent, intent, intent. So what was his intent? So the fact that he allegedly drove around the place before the meeting, why did he do that? What was on his mind? Was he planning something? Did he want to see what the scene was like? It shows a very strong case for the state.
And I think there's been evidence, Marie, for me to think, well, he definitely, in this particular case with this woman, was doing some things that I would consider stalking, probably harassing. Does that rise to the level of murder in your mind so far with the evidence the state's presented?
It doesn't rise to the level of murder, but it creates a motive. A motive, you know, we don't have to prove as prosecutors, but the jurors want to know what had happened.
Yep.
And I'm going to say it again. Even though Kelly gets upset, it was Messy Meredith.
That's behind the scenes.
That was the catalyst behind this entire thing.
Yeah.
And was him going to, you know, drive around that parking lot show intent? I agree with Kelly on that point. But as far as him being there in the first place, who arranged it? Messy Meredith.
Maybe Meredith had tried and tried and tried, right? And was fed up and done and didn't know what else to do and thought, all right, fine, let's try it. Go talk to him. See if you can reason with him because he's harassing me. He's stalking me. He's driving me crazy. I'm fearful of him. I just need him to go away. Go try it. I don't think that means, Kelly, necessarily she thought, oh, it's going to result in death.
People need to be accountable for their actions. And now the defendant is innocent until proven guilty. But if in fact he is guilty, then there is accountability.
All right, we're out of time. Thank you to Kelly Hyman for joining us. Marie sticking around. Up next, Michael Ayala. We're going to bring you more testimony in the jealous husband murder trial for Bud Ackerman. Stay tuned.
At Consumer Cellular, we pride ourselves on getting you the exact same nationwide coverage as the leading carriers for up to half the cost. But don't worry, we've got a lot more than that going for us. Woo! Like this beautiful store in Arizona, for example. It's the perfect place for me to tell you a little bit more about our phones and how they can become your phones. You name it, we probably got it. We have the top smartphones from all the major companies. If it's state-of-the-art cameras you want with space-age metal housing, we got them. If you want a smartphone with lots of bells and whistles but won't break the bank, we've got that too. We even have flip phones like the Iris Flip. If you're someone that doesn't need all that mumbo-jumbo and just wants something simple. And now, we even have watches.
We do.
No matter what device you choose, you'll be happy to know that if your data needs change,
No problem.
with our Smart Flex feature, you don't have to sweat it. Like say you're on a road trip out west and end up using a bunch of data. We can simply flex you up to the next data tier for as little as $5. Then, when you get home, you can flex right back down with no penalty. So you only pay for what you actually need.
With Consumer Cellular, you get the exact same nationwide coverage as the leading carriers for up to half the cost.
I know what you're thinking. What if I don't have one of these amazing stores in my town yet? Can I get these phones sent to me?
Yes, you can.
Will our award-winning customer service help me switch over or add a line for $15 to make my own family plan?
Of course they will.
Is it easy?
Easy as pie.
You see that tower out there? It's a beauty. And there are thousands more like it, working hard for me and you, supplying 5G coverage to this beautiful nation of ours. We know how important coverage is. That's why we offer a risk-free guarantee. If you're not satisfied within 30 days of activation, you can pay nothing. Oh, look.
New customers save $50 when you sign up today. Call 1-800-918-5644. Find us in Target or visit consumercellular.com to switch today.
She knows what she's talking about. Pick up the phone.
My doctor told me I needed to start prioritizing my liver health.
Dose for Your Liver is a clinically backed supplement that supports healthy liver function.
My stomach feels a lot better.
He has more energy. He sees his grandkids more. Start your liver health journey today at dosedaily.co.
Helping families with mesothelioma is all we do. Our firm has been offering a free book on mesothelioma for over 10 years. Since that time, thousands with mesothelioma have trusted us to represent them against those responsible. We have local offices throughout the U.S. Mesothelioma really is all we do, and there is no risk to you. Let us put a plan in place for you and your family. Call now.
Call us at 800-259-8638 or go to mesobook.com.
What happens in Vegas stays. Well, not anymore. Play Quick Hit Slots, the free-to-play mobile slots game that everyone is playing from coast to coast. Download Quick Hit Slots for free and get a 6 million coin bonus. Make every day a winning day.
I'm interested in trying these new weight loss shots, but I need it to be more affordable because my insurance doesn't cover it. I'm not sure which online provider to trust, and I want to ask a doctor a lot of questions.
The secret's out. At Henry Meds, our knowledgeable providers demystify compounded semaglutide, the same active ingredient in brand name weight management meds. If you're eligible for treatment, your medication will be shipped to your door for just $297 a month. You can save thousands by using Henry Meds for weight management medication.
We really need to get that life insurance.
I know, it's just a lot.
Did someone say life insurance?
Introducing Evie for Ethos.
Let's make this easy. In just 10 minutes, Ethos can help you protect your family's future for as little as $10 a month.
But the medical exams are invasive, right?
You won't feel a thing because there aren't any. Go to ethoslife.com, answer a few health questions, and you can get same-day coverage up to $2 million.
Ethos. Life insurance so easy it feels like magic. Get a quote in seconds at ethoslife.com.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Ashley Wilcott.
And I'm Michael Ayala. We're both here today giving you your front row seat to justice, and we are in several courtrooms across the country this afternoon here on Court TV.
In South Carolina first, defendant William Bud Ackerman is accused of fatally striking Kenneth Davis McClendon with his car in the early morning hours of May 7th of 2023.
McClendon had recently begun dating Ackerman's soon-to-be ex-wife, and the two men had agreed to meet up and talk when McClendon was struck.
And in Florida, our newest live trial kicked off today with opening statements in the home renovation murder trial.
Corey Benderim is accused of killing his client after she threatened to sue him for not completing a bathroom project. We'll bring you updates from that trial throughout the day.
But for now, let's head back to South Carolina, where the state's final witness is testifying on direct examination. This is Captain Mike Murdoch, and he investigated this. He's been showing us video of the path of the truck that the defendant was in. Let's go back in.
There, the mate had advanced training and reconstruction or mapping, and I knew they had the ability to download what I call the black box. So that's why I called them in, because I knew if they were able to do the mapping, it would be able to provide you with a visual representation like I think you saw yesterday of the scene.
Of course, just a few more
Sure,
questions.
you're fine, you're fine.
Cat, will you come down here, please?
Sure, oh yeah, no problem.